Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot. Each week on the Reset Podcast, I interview really unique people who are doing game-changing things. And today's episode is no different and super exciting for me. One of my favorite people in the world, Anne Ahola Ward, CEO. See, I got your name right.
Nice.
CEO, futurist, all-around badass woman. We'll be talking about all things blockchain, women's empowerment. We are taping today's episode on International Women's Day, so we are fired up about being badass ladies, and it's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen.
Happy International Women's Day to you.
And to you too, Anne. So we're here live at South by Southwest.
Yes, it's amazing to be here.
And, you know, whenever I start the show, I always ask the same first question because it's fascinating to me how no matter what people's first jobs were, it always correlates in some way, shape, or form to what they do right now. And I get it. I'm looking at you right now.
Oh, no.
I can see that it's going to be the same thing. So, Anne, what was your first job?
Babysitting.
I can't even begin to say how accurate and profound and it is.
So to the mother of startups?
Yes. It's you know, being that you are a mother of startups, as named by CNN, Forbes,
Yes.
and a bunch of other amazing publications.
Yes.
That tells me that I was accurate in my assessment.
Nailed it.
Totally nailed it. And so when you babysat, high five.
High five.
How old were the kids that you babysat, and were they majority boys?
Yes, majority were boys because
course.
girls at the same ages were often left alone. I started out with like 8 or 9 years old. The first request came from a neighbor across the street, and my mom said, "But my daughter's the same age as your child." And she said, "Well, she's just so mature." And so I actually put an ad in the local community newsletter, and alphabetically I was Anne Ahola, so I was first. And I booked summer gigs. At one point I was hiring out other women to handle my babysitting. Yeah, and then I went to college, and it was a different story, but it was like what you do in the suburbs.
That it's so prophetic. I can't even begin to discuss how prophetic this is.
Yeah, my mind's whirling about it, quite honestly.
It was so Anne, what do you do now?
I am the CEO of Vertitoken Global, and I am a CEO in blockchain, I guess you could say.
Oh, fantastic. So, you know, lots of people are like, the heck is blockchain? I'm so confused. Help me. What's the story of blockchain? What are you doing at Vertitoken Global that's different than anybody else out there?
I think what we're doing differently is we're focusing on not just tools, but community in tools, and the adoption of NFTs, which non-fungible tokens, which I believe are the superior standard, and this, the more secure standard. And there are way more things we can be doing with blockchain than we are today. It's all kind of just theory. So putting those theories into practice and building tools to enable the technology is what I'm doing, and what I think is really important, and I think that is what makes us different. We were also one of the few that is majority female owned, majority female run. 2/3 of the C-suite is female, and in addition to that, we also are based between Texas and California, which I think anchors us really well.
You're in the real world as well as in the sun.
I'm not operating in a vacuum. I'm not in. And I love Silicon Valley. I'm proud to be from there, but it's not always the best just to have that view. You kind of have to step outside and hear other perspectives, and Texas is great for that.
And for you, it'd be great just for folks to understand how you even came to this, because not only are your credentials outstanding.
Aw, thank you. You flatter me.
Yes, that's what I do with my guests. But also your journey, how you got to be sitting at Vertitoken today.
Right. So the common thread in all of my experience is that I followed what interested me. That was very important to me, that I continue to pursue the paths that made sense to me, the things that I wanted to do, the things I was excited about doing. And that took me on an unconventional path. So I started out anthropology major, but I was working as an HTML editor at night. My first job I talked my way into, my first college job was for collections assistant for a museum, Harry Ransom Center at UT campus. And then a year later they were hiring a DBA, and I was the only one who knew the program at all. So I talked my way into it, and I taught myself a bunch, and then got a job as an HTML editor. So at night I was doing coding, like learning how to be a developer, and then in the daytime as a student, and then the .com boom came. And so it was pretty much the biggest hyper-concentration burst of tech excitement that I think had ever been. So I was working for a startup at that time, and it just kind of rolled from there. Like, startup life was what I wanted. The only corporate experience I have ever had was working for Apple.
Wow.
And I was a developer designer at Apple. And after that, it was like, okay, tools are getting good. I don't think I'm the person who takes the orders of what goes on the website. I think I'm the person that gives the orders. Like, I think I'm the person that envisions the page, thinks about the funnel. Like, I realized I was that person. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to give this SEO thing a try, and that's what I've been doing the last 10 years.
So how did you get to be the person? How did you get to have that inner knowledge where it's like, yeah, I'm not meant to be the person who codes this. I'm much more the person who gets to see the bigger picture.
Apple opened my eyes to other things on the internet. I was there right around the time of when iTunes was launching. And we built a kind of, like, I don't want to betray any NDAs. I'll just say that we built some stuff that was really cool. And I saw this other side of the web that I hadn't thought about. Because at that point, you were just, like, getting a MySpace page, getting a this. You were just showing up. You didn't really know what you were doing yet on the internet. You just wanted to be there.
Like, hey,
the iPhone had just come out. Like, iPods were big. Like, it was like... Or maybe the iPhone hadn't come out yet. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. But what I'm saying is that seeing what they were doing led me to believe there was this other world, and that was way cooler to me. So,
awesome.
Again, following the thread. I did what interested me. I followed it. I was like, I think this is cool. And I was right, and it became a whole industry.
Awesome. And then, so you founded Serval Click. And you became the goddess of all things SEO, because you're my SEO sensei, full disclosure.
Thank you. And
how did going from the world of SEO and then being in the Valley get you to where you are now?
It put me on the path of fixing startups and building startups and scaling startups. Like, that's all anyone wants to do is that's like what we're obsessed with in San Francisco is growth. And so by learning to grow the web presence, there are often other glaring business issues that I would notice and that I couldn't address as an agency person. That I couldn't go in and fix. I could just see them. And so I was seeing problems in startups from day one and understood how they should be built and understood which ones went public, which ones didn't. I mean, I had a hand in a lot of successful startups that IPO'd and a lot of startups that grew and are successful. So it's like I've seen it, but being in the driver's seat is way cooler.
Of course.
Way cooler. I'm just going to say it.
So now
Vertitoken's been amazing.
Your article in Forbes today was fantastic because it really showed how you see where the future is going in a really strategic way, but also in a way that's going to be far more open to other folks as well. So I know that you're the badass, but I love you to talk about the challenges because I think we oftentimes, we hear the challenges and it becomes this thing where I can't do this, I can't figure this out.
Yeah.
But you have, successfully been a Phoenix many, many times. What's been your...
As have you.
This is true. We hung in the fire together. So it's a sweaty place.
Exactly. We took turns.
But what's been the biggest challenge you think you've had in your career, and how have you been able to rise above it?
I think the biggest challenge, if I'm being candid, which I feel as though I can be, has been being a woman in technology. Like that in and itself, being the different one, being the one woman in the room, which I was for many, many years. You know, being taken to strip clubs and being told they're business meetings, getting asked to get the coffee, all of those things happened to me. And those were my biggest challenges because I wasn't taken seriously in certain circles. And now, as a marketing, growth, and leadership person, I am taken seriously because of all that experience and all that hardship that I endured. Like that sexism that I was faced, especially in developer circles, there was some pretty bad stuff that happened. So I really feel like just feeling like you don't belong there is a big challenge. And then just realizing that you do, and that they're all just kind of scared of you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's like the house spider, right? Like, you're terrified, but look at you. Like, it's remembering you're not the spider.
You know, that's the thing I think we oftentimes, especially as, you know, women in business, you know, we get all sorts of weird stuff that happens to us. And, you know, do we sit and take it, or do we find a solution? And you've been fantastic at finding those solutions.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I think the key has just been talking about it for so long, and we just pretended, or we'd tell each other. We had whisper networks where we would spread information and say, hey, watch this, watch that. But now it's like freaking Twitter practically.
Yeah, it's funny. You know, there's a phrase that my aunts use in Jamaican patois. It says, you don't talk secret, you ball it out. I mean, just say it. Just say what's happening, because that's the only way you get the things moving forward, is if you say this stuff out loud. And I think that's key. So now, as an adult who's, you know, obviously doing fantastically well, what would you say to 25-year-old Anne?
I would say, 25-year-old Anne, you're awesome. You are nailing it. Keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right track, and quit worrying so much what other people think.
That's the thing. I think, especially when there's so much pressure to be everything to everybody, and there's this weight that's on, especially women in technology and founders, and it's like, take it off your shoulders.
Yeah.
It ain't.
I was Atlas. I thought I had, like, the weight of the world on me, and I didn't. But maybe that's what drove me. I don't know. But I think self-esteem is really what I would want to give 25-year-old me.
Yeah, I think, so, full disclosure, 25-year-old Laura, same, and 25-year-old Anne would probably be sitting in a corner somewhere. Like, plotting. Like, I wish one day that I could come up with this thing. It would be amazing, but no one wants to hear from me. But that's a thing. Oh my God, what do I do? You know, I think talking about, you know, being strong and taking action, you came to Vertitoken, and you've become a sheriff of blockchain.
Well, that's the hope. Yeah, I mean, we need community leaders. I mean, it's great that we're decentralized. It's awesome that we have all this power, but where's our responsibility? And that's really what I'm talking about, and why I wrote the Vertitoken Bill of Rights, and something I put out this week that I'm really passionate about, because I feel like we have trusted other people to be the stewards of our online information and our identities. And that trust has been abused wildly and flaunted. And you can benefit from your own information, and you should. And so being part of that movement is something that I think is my greatest passion, and also will hopefully be my greatest success, because it's really important to me that we take our power back.
And so tell us more about the Bill of Rights, because I think that's, again, blockchain gets this bad rap from the rest of the world who's outside of our bubble in terms of tech and marketing, because they don't get it. And so if you could explain, like, you know, what the Bill of Rights is, it would be super helpful.
Absolutely. So the Bill of Rights are some simple theories that I've put forward as to what I believe we have the right to as humans on the internet. Like me revisiting what I feel is important. I don't want to go into them specifically, but essentially data sovereignty. This is what this looks like. I'm trying to build a roadmap for solutions and what we expect as consumers moving forward, rather than, you know, talking about the problem, which I feel like I've been doing till I'm blue in the face. So, like, being a part of that solution is what the Vertitoken Bill of Rights is all about, because I truly fundamentally believe that when technology is not accessible to people, it becomes limiting. And at this point, blockchain is not accessible. It's a theory. So I want to be one of the people that puts the theory in practice and really helps the world with this technology. Like, I really, truly believe it. And the Bill of Rights are just sort of, I think, an agreement that we should all make with our ISPs, our social networks, Google. Like, we should revisit. Like, I think it's time to renegotiate.
Well, yeah, I think we don't. Well, the thing is, we never had that conversation. Like, it's renegotiating something that was never negotiated. It was just like, oh, here, bye, mine, take it away.
Right, and GDPR was a good start and a good theory, but it's just been a weird practice for us here in the States.
Well, yeah, I think people are confused because now you see the little do you accept apply on websites that are coming in from other places, but like, what am I doing? What am I agreeing to? How do I even understand?
Right, it's a simple annoyance. It's not a protection. It's a notification that nobody wanted and nobody understands, and that's unfortunate. Like, we need better education around it. We need to understand it. But that's why I thought putting out my principles of how I believe we should operate, like, we'll start there. And then we can focus on the mechanisms for that. If we can all just get on the same page of what we expect, like, we could do better than pop-ups on websites.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a big part of this. That, like, it's not about the pop-up on the website. It's that, like, your data is your data.
Right.
And if you want to share it, here's what the sort of mutually agreed upon handshake around this is. And that hasn't happened yet in smart ways. It's just like, well, here's a pop-up. What? How am I going to do this? Have you felt any pushback as you guys have started to sort of begin to come out from the shadows of what you guys are going to put, the stakes in the ground that you guys are going to hold?
No, because everybody's just doing their own thing, not talking to each other.
Sounds like for developers.
Yeah. So there's going to be some rallying. That's a key part of what I'll need to focus on doing in the near future. But I'm ready for it. I'm down.
And what do you think? What's the next 18 to 24 months going to be in this universe? Like, GDPR came out earlier this year, and Facebook's getting hauled back in front of Congress again. Where does this all put us in a year or two from now? Or ideally, what do you think will happen?
Well, I think with the rise of virtual currency, I think we're going to see a shift in consumer thinking, because we had JP Morgan release JP Morgan coin, or announced JP Morgan coin.
Oh, wow.
And we also had Samsung put the crypto wallet on the 10. So a mobile wallet for crypto that fixes the usability problems. Like, once the usability of that gets sorted out, which I believe it is, very big players are now in the game, I think we're going to see a shift to that, because you have a lot more permissions and rights in some of the scenarios that we're painting for blockchain. So I think the way may not necessarily be to fix the traditional financial systems and these companies directly. It's maybe to build a path that opens up the door for other companies. Because if you don't like the world, are you going to fight it, or are you going to build a new one? Like, it's sort of, my philosophy is that we're going to just at least give it a good run. We've got to try and see if there's an alternative.
Yeah, because I think the usability factor for a lot of this is the key. That it's still way over the average person's head. And not understanding that what blockchain means, what kind of stable coins are available, none of that stuff makes sense to the average Joe. If I talked to my Lyft driver yesterday, they'd have no idea what I was talking about. And how do you think the language has to change so that the average person understands why the use of blockchain can be helpful for them in the future? And now, actually.
What do I think they need to understand?
Yeah, because people hear blockchain and they go, what?
Well, I think start with the currency. Like, I think, go open up a wallet, try buying some Bitcoin, try using it, maybe start with the currency. Consumers, there's not a lot for them to do yet other than to work with this, or, use a service that uses blockchain. Like, there's music services now that are starting to use it. So, like, utilizing those businesses that are using blockchain would be probably the best way right now. But I think just staying tuned into what's happening in the industry is the best thing to do for a consumer, other than purchasing currency. And obviously start small, only do what you can afford to lose, because investing in crypto isn't an investment, it's speculation. So be wise with it. But I think that's a really good way to start getting comfortable with it.
So, be very careful.
Yes.
Don't put money in you can't afford to lose.
Right. Right, and use cold storage. Don't. What I like to tell people to do is have your kind of play money amount where you're shifting it around and buying different stuff, and have that be like a digestible amount, $500 or less, or equivalency, right? And then if you buy more of it because of market timing or whatever you feel, keep that in cold storage. Don't keep it all in one place, basically, so that if the worst happens, then
that's safe.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll embolden you a little bit to get comfortable with it and try it, and buy some crypto kitties.
Yes, I'd like to buy some.
They are non-fungible tokens, so
that's so I heard.
I'm down with it.
So I think in honor of International Women's Day, I think we should talk about how do we continue to help lift other women up. And what are some of the things that you think are the best things that we can do to help other women?
Great question. I think that my general philosophy is always have a woman who's mentoring you, and always have a woman that you yourself are mentoring. So kind of keep the chain going of leadership, support, to your best of your ability. If you don't have the time, don't commit to something you can't commit to, and just sort of joining the groups that are active in what you're interested about, and just sort of, getting in tune with certain communities. It's always really good. But I think specifically the best way to support women is to know when to listen, know when to hug, know when to give advice. Just be that person for any women you can that need it. Lift them up, because let me tell you, it will lift you up. Helping other women is not anything you will ever regret.
Yeah. I think that's...
in business.
It's so important, because I feel... very often I hear from people, well, I have to pay to pick someone's brain or something along those lines. And I'm like, well, you know what it is? If you have 15 minutes, you can spend 15 minutes. It's really about figuring out how to be good to other people, because that's the best part about all of this. And, over the years, it's how we became friends, because it's like, oh, we've got to, hook each other up. And
yeah.
Because it's the right thing. It's the right
oh,
thing
you're
to
going here. Here's a path to that. Oh, you should meet so-and-so. We've just been doing that for each other for years. But, yeah, I feel like you have an opportunity to help another woman, help her. And she'll help you. And build that network. Because, we need to stop looking at each other as friends. Or, oh, I don't want to be rude. Or, oh, I don't want to impose. Do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
People are asking you.
Well, people are asking you, and you don't do it. It's like...
Right.
And, men don't have this issue. And, I think one thing that's also kind of really important is that for every woman that we help, it's also important to have, men who are sponsors, not who, back us up. And for the men who are listening, what's the best way for them to be, our best helpers in our careers? I
definitely think that same sort of throng of support of knowing when to listen, knowing when to make an introduction, and consciously mentoring more women. I mean, that does not mean the exclusion of men by any means, but give it a shot. Don't be dissuaded by, gender dynamics. Try it and form those relationships, and then let women tell you. I think listening is just such a huge thing. When you feel heard in any situation, it's just, there's nothing but good that comes from that. And I think men, I don't want to overgeneralize, but it's they want to fix, or it's maybe just listen. Maybe just we'll figure it out. And that sort of supportive change in mindset. We're going golfing. Let's invite her too. She might like golfing. Maybe not make this a guy's thing. Maybe make it an everyone thing.
Exactly.
The sort of older ways of thinking. Just updating them.
Awesome. And also in honor of International Women's Day, I'd love for you to shout out some of your favorite women in business. Because we're going to tweet out a ton of these.
Ooh, wow. Some of my favorite women in business.
Press and Company included, obviously.
Obviously you. Ginny Rometty, CEO of IBM. I have had just a great admiration for her for as long as I can remember. definitely Ellen Powell, and what she's been doing. I really like Mary Meeker. Her annual report has always been a source of great joy to me. Yeah, great joy to me, and I love her data-driven approaches. And definitely, and I know this is probably going to be the most controversial, but I'll say Melissa Meyer. She shares with me Finnish ancestry and heritage, and I respect her, even though, she's taken some heat in the last few years. I don't care. I think people were so much harder on her because she was a woman.
Oh, of course.
And then also, finally, Meg Whitman. Yeah. Just boss. Boss. I love boss ladies. And I'm so excited to, spend this Lady Day with you.
Likewise. Well, Anne, it's been such a great honor to have you on the show. And we'll shout out all these amazing women. We'll include all the information about finding out more about Vertitoken Global and following you on every platform under creation. And Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day to you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks, everybody, and that's our show.